And we are officially live, Stephen. This is
Okay.
with the man, the myth, the legend, from Quinnipiac to Colgate. So right now we're very lucky to be joined by Stephen Elfenbein, and I think I got the name right this time. And he's actually a drug and alcohol coordinator at Colgate. So he's doing a lot of amazing work on campus with students. And first of all, Stephen, before I introduce you, I'd love to give you a chance to introduce yourself, because I know you could do a better job than I can.
So hi, my name is Steve. I'm the drug and alcohol counselor at Colgate. So my official title is the alcohol and other drugs counselor and coordinator. And I'm just really appreciative and feel lucky to be involved in this whole process. So I just, really appreciate you letting me be on this interview with you.
Absolutely. And the first thing I always like to ask is, with everything going on, how are you feeling? How are you coping with everything that's going on?
I feel really lucky, is what I would say. I feel lucky from the home standpoint. My parents are healthy, I'm healthy, and I feel lucky to be in the position I'm in terms of the work. I'm lucky to have a job, and I'm also really lucky to have a supportive job, where I have supervisors that I can talk to and we can talk these things through. And so I would describe myself as I just feel very lucky, and I'm in a really great opportunity.
That's awesome. And, I think one thing I always get curious about, and I love to hear, is what got you involved in this work? What makes you so passionate about the students and doing work with, with drugs, alcohol addiction, and mental wellness?
So it's kind of a windy path. I started out as a young adolescent, I guess, wanting to be a basketball coach. And actually, when I was at Quinnipiac, I was a student manager there for 4 years. And what I discovered is, really, in those 4 years, that as much as I loved basketball and I loved like talking about the X's and O's, what I was really passionate about was supporting the student athlete. And so in the back of my mind, I always had a college counseling center job, like as the sort of like the big goal, the dream goal, so to speak, right? And so I went to graduate school at the University of Buffalo, and I got my master's in social work. And while I was there, I really became really passionate about the idea of shifting the tone of how we talk about mental health in America. So we start out, especially with addiction, there's all this stigma. There was the moral model, which was essentially like, if you use drugs, it was a moral failure. There was something like, quote unquote, like wrong with you, right? And so I love the idea of like switching to the disease model, the like compassionate model. And so I got really lucky with a great opportunity at an internship my second year. And so I worked for 4 years at a non-intensive outpatient in Syracuse Recovery Services. And I just really love the idea of being able to support our students in what is really a difficult time. And we talk about this all the time in the office, that it's the most freedom, it's also the most responsibility, and it's the easiest access to drugs and alcohol that you've ever had. So it's this really interesting intersection. And to know that there were people that supported, quite frankly, like my friends when they were students, myself when I was a student, to be able to be in an office with Katie and with Nikki Keating and Don LaFrance and Christian and a lot of the other people that we're going to talk about, I really feel lucky to do that.
That's awesome too. And I think you hit the nail on the head with compassion, right? Because,
Yeah.
when we were in college, it was, I felt like people didn't talk about their demons, right? It was just, let's go out, let's go to the bar on a Friday night, let's do this. And I started realizing as I got older that there's so many, there's nothing wrong with going out and having a few drinks and being with your friends. But at the same time, I started recognizing some signs in myself that, wow, I have to slow down. There's a better way to cope and to open up about what's going on inside, and to start talking about these things, and to start finding new ways and new techniques to be healthy, And I think right now, obviously, with the way the world is, it's very unique. People are home, people aren't really in social gatherings that much. But obviously, this has me really thinking about addiction, because this is isolation is something that addicts will thrive on, right? It's a beautiful thing. You want to be isolated, so to speak, in your own head at times, right? With this going on right now, what are some pointers and some words of advice that you can give out to people who might be struggling right now?
So that's a really great point. And one of the huge things that we talk about is connection. So this is actually, I don't know if you've ever heard of this. It's a great TED Talk. It's called The Opposite of Addiction is Connection. And it's something that we used to watch in my outpatient group all of the time. And it's this idea that really, maybe to make it even simpler, there's a real reason that self-support groups are as successful as they have been. AA, NA. Now, look, nothing is perfect, but there is something to the idea of connection. So one of the things that we've talked about with our students is anything possible to stay connected. And I even say, in like, it's kind of silly, but it's actually, to me, it's really important. Sending like a funny meme to your roommate, sending a funny video, sending a text message, even if it's not the deepest of conversations, just to know, like, hey man, like I was thinking about you and I like saw this funny clip and I thought of you, or I know your favorite basketball team is the Celtics. And, like, did you see what Jason Tatum did last night? There is something really, to me, there's something really intimate, powerful to that. So then if, look, you know, I need to talk to my friend John, we have a baseline that we've already been talking. And so we've maintained that connection probably because one of the things they talk about in the AA and NA rooms is the 1,000-pound phone. So that when you really need help, you really need support, that phone weighs 1,000 pounds. So we talk about practicing. So today I'm feeling good. Today I don't need to talk to anybody, but I know that it's good for me to stay connected. So I'm just going to send you like the greatest dunks in Celtic history today. And so maybe tomorrow I wake up and I feel anxious. I feel depressed. I'm down. If I'm in the process of the disease of addiction, maybe I do really have that urge or that craving. I'm in the middle of a conversation with you. It's just a little bit easier to have that conversation. And so we strive and just I couldn't encourage enough anything you can do to stay connected. And so on the technical side of things, there's smartrecovery.org. So you can quite literally type into Google just smart recovery, and that will plug you into some really great supports. And there are actually, and I can share this with you after if you want,
Yeah.
there are online meetings that I have access to where if you Google and just for the sake of this, if you Google AA or NA online meetings, they will come up in your area and they're doing Zoom AA and NA meetings.
Yeah.
And and I think they're pretty well attended. So anything like that to stay connected on that end, but then also just the idea of general connection. Because the propensity to isolate can be really tempting and really scary.
That's really important too, because like you said, connection is the opposite, right? And when you're able to have that connection, you tend to say, okay, I now feel like I have an extra piece of support, someone who understands me. So now, if I'm thinking of placing that bet, or if I'm thinking of taking that drink, or whatever it may be, you say, okay, I feel connected, and I don't feel as embarrassed as what I might have before, because I have so much sympathy for this, because own personal experiences and people that I know that have gone through this. And I've seen some of the most beautiful people are the ones that suffer the most too, and it's very
Yeah.
hard for them to get
Yeah.
that out there. And I just think what you guys are doing, and how you bring that up, that's so important.
Yeah, well, and it's also this idea that and sometimes I don't say this as eloquently as I'm going to say it now, but it's this idea that somebody out there cares about you. And for you to know that, even if it's way deep down in your conscious, that somebody cared. And that's why it's funny, I really do encourage the gift and meme and video sending, because that's a very small way, but a significant way of saying somebody out there is thinking of you. And that, I think, is really, when you're going through something, when you're surviving something, when you're coping, I think that's really a beautiful thing to know that there's somebody out there that cares.
Mhm. I think, what are just some practices right now that students can use to help themselves while they might be away from their family? What are some things? I'm sorry, away from their community at Colgate. What are some things that you've been encouraging for students to do, and just to keep themselves connected?
So the huge thing that we're doing, and this is actually something that Shaw Wellness does a beautiful job of. So that's where my office is. So I'm lucky. I get to be in two offices. I'm in the counseling center, and then I'm also in the Shaw Wellness Institute. And so one of the great things that the Shaw Wellness Institute does is almost every day they have like a social media post that encourages connection. So it's an idea that like we really, it goes back to that connection. It goes back to this idea of what can we do? So one of the huge things that we're doing is play like, I don't know, we had a list that came out where it was like, join a movie club, start a movie club, start a book club, start a Zoom club, get into a routine of like connection. And so here's one of the trickier parts though, and because this is the reality of the situation. Not everybody has the luxury that they have 5 friends. Like, me, you, and Zach Smart are lucky. We can get a basketball group chat going in a second.
Yeah.
Not everybody has that benefit. Then not everybody's that lucky. Not everyone has access to a computer whenever they want. And so one of the things that I am a huge proponent of is those healthy coping skills, those positive experiences. So like in dialectical behavioral therapy, which is one of the therapies that we do at Colgate, there's this accumulating positive events. So one of the things that we love to do is encourage, learn a skill. Like teach yourself in this moment, pick up the guitar that you never were going to pick up because you didn't have time. Take a walk, be in nature. We're huge proponents of mindfulness. John Kabat-Zinn is all over our offices. And people tease me that like I like John Kabat-Zinn as like my best friend or something. But it's really those type of practices that you can do by yourself. And those are things that we just love to encourage.
And I agree because when you start finding that little spark, you start realizing, whoa, there's actually way more to my world than what I thought there was. There's way more to my world than going out on Friday and Saturday and
Yeah,
blacking out or doing what you might have been doing before to find peace in your own mind, right? Because some people think that, hey, that's my only way of coping with what's going on. And I've noticed even personally by this slowing down, I've been doing breathing techniques. I've been doing
yeah,
circuit workouts. I've been doing things that have just been getting me through the day and making me feel healthier that I really want to translate to the next level, right? When this is all over.
yeah. No, and that's, like the cool idea here is that it gives us an idea of like what the strength-based perspective of our life really is. And so instead of saying like, I'm not going out as much, it's like the way you said it was so great about like I'm doing those circuit things. So instead of focusing on like what we're not doing, we're focused on like what we are doing. And I think, I must admit I am not doing circuit training. Um, but um, but maybe I should. And it's this idea that you'd be amazed at what works. Because sometimes you think that, oh, like that silly little breathing exercise isn't going to help me. And then all of a sudden you try it like for 2, 3 days in a row, and it does help you. That walk that might seem insignificant is really significant. And so, yeah, we also like urge the students because they're so smart here. I always joke that they're way smarter than me, is which is totally a fact. But it's this idea that they have so many ideas that they might not even be aware. And so Shaw Wellness provides all of these great ideas. The Office of International Students, the athletic department, they have all of these resources on campus. And for the people that aren't on campus, the idea is to me, you are so smart as a human being and you have so much potential. And if you go and try something, I bet you it will work. And we're a huge proponent of that.
And it's empowerment, right? Because these students need to
Yeah.
realize like, dang, I can do this. And there is something that I'm really good at, even though I didn't believe it before this. Right. And I think that version, when you empower yourself and you feel it and you see it working, there's nothing more beautiful than seeing a student's eyes light up and realize, holy shoot, this worked. This actually worked. And I
Yeah.
think that, yeah, that fills me with so much joy and hope because, it turns hopelessness into empowerment. Right. And all of a sudden it's like, wow, now, you're 21, 22 years old. And by the time you're in your next level of life, you have these strategies and you're feeling better and you're passing those on to other people. And, another thing I wanted to kind of touch base on are some, I guess, online resources right now that students are using, some things that the Wellness Center offers, what you guys are offering. What are just some things that are being offered right now at Colgate?
Yeah, great. So I would say, and I'm going to keep plugging this because we do a lot of work on it, and Vicki Coates does a lot of work on it. Emily Conroe and Katie Griffiths, they just do amazing work at Shaw. Every week there's a newsletter that goes out with what feels like 1,000 great ideas about how to like really cope in this situation, whether it's activities, group ideas. And so we really just, the Shaw Wellness Center, we have a social media presence. We have a newsletter that goes out in our email. And so those are some great outlets. And the other thing that we say is the counseling center is still open. We see people through Zoom and phone consultations. We offer groups, so that's a huge thing. Actually, is the person who runs like the groups program. Her name's Nikki Keating, and she's just like one of these like awesome, warm-hearted people. And we have groups Monday, Thursday, starting at 4 o'clock, where you can literally just go to the counseling center website. It'll give the advertisement for it, and you can just sign on to a group. And so last week, my topic was, I think it was, you should probably know this off the top of my head. It was like isolation and despair, and like how are we coping with it? And so if you're a Colgate student, I would really just love the opportunity to see you in that group, and you can just pop in and pop out. It doesn't have to be like 90 minutes, you just sitting still there, and like it's not a requirement. But yeah, I mean, the online group program, I think, is a really great idea. And Haven, which is our sexual violence survivor program, they're still open. They have phone, Zoom consultation. So we're still really here for our students, and that starts with obviously like the administration at the top and how important our students are to us.
And you're building that feeling of community in a time
Yeah,
where it's so badly needed, and that connection is keeping people, I think, allowing them to be a little more vulnerable, a little more open, and I think it's making people more resilient, to be honest.
yeah.
It's really interesting stuff. And I think the other thing that I would love to ask you: are there any other additional resources or advice that you would give to students at home, or anyone that is recovering or is living with someone who may be in recovery at this point as well?
Yeah. So my I don't know, sometimes it sounds too simple, but to me it starts with this idea of giving yourself the compassion that you would give somebody else, right? And so this is from one of the interventions that we do. It's an evidence-based intervention called Seeking Safety. And in one of those, the pamphlets start with a quote. And one of the quotes, and I'm going to butcher the quote because I don't have it in front of me, is this idea of you deserve your love and compassion as much as anybody else in the world. And so it's this idea that if I saw you in the waiting room crying or upset or in some level of distress, I would say, hey, John, like, are you okay? Like, how can I help you? Well, I've got to give that same kindness to myself. So if you're in recovery, if you've just relapsed, if you are thinking of relapsing, if your family member has relapsed, they're thinking of relapse, one of the most beautiful things about recovery, and recovery is something that I just believe in, I just think it's this magical thing, is the idea of being kind to yourself. And the idea of like, that is the starting point, is that self-compassion, that self-kindness. And that there is no right or wrong. It's not on that binary. It's this kindness and compassion we have to ourselves. I would really utilize smart recovery. And that is a huge thing. I think that if you're in recovery right now, or you're even thinking about being in recovery, smart recovery is a great option. And I hate to plug myself, but I'm available really from just about 8:30 in the morning till 5 o'clock at night, for any kind of phone consultation if you're on campus. And if you're off campus and you don't have access to your email, I would say put into Google, an AA online meetings. Maybe you have the big book. I do believe in the big book. And I think that those are some really good strategies.
Those are amazing, and I love what you said. It's so beautiful to be kind to yourself, and also, if you do relapse, and if you do something that makes that you didn't want to do, don't get mad at yourself. Don't beat yourself up.
Right.
give yourself the same forgiveness that you would give to someone else that you know that's going through the same struggle. That's the beauty of that community, and showing that, hey, listen, just because you relapse doesn't mean you have to do it again the next day. Like, we're here for you. Like, let's
Right.
be there for each other. Let's let you know, hey, it's okay. You're still a beautiful person, even though you're suffering.
Right.
And even though you're going through this, it doesn't make you a bad person. It's the total opposite. Like, don't
Right.
we're gonna pick you up. I think that's
Right.
huge, because
No,
that's
there's
that.
no, there's somebody, there's somebody out there that loves you. And even if it's, like your AA sponsor, and they love you, they care about you. And I say that to the students. I jokingly say to the students, like, once they meet with me once, they're stuck with me, and like, I'm just going to bother them and make sure that they're doing okay. And they usually laugh, and but it that is really important to know that instead of saying you are not alone, it's that you have community.
I love that, Steven. This is awesome. And I'll say, is there any other final words that you'd want to say to the community, to any students? Because I mean, it's just great listening to you. You're giving so many good resources and advice right now. Is there anything else that you want to end this with?
No, I just so appreciate you having me on for this. So important, and I really appreciate it. And I just wish everyone the best, and I'm thinking of everybody.
Yeah, and that's the key. I mean, anyone out there listening, there's a lot of resources. There's a lot of people that love you, and be nice to yourself. We're gonna get through this together, and yeah, this was an absolute pleasure. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.